Hey gang, you're listening to the Savvy Dentist podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jesse Green, and welcome to another episode of the show. At the end of the last episode, I mentioned that I'd be telling you a story today about a friend of mine who went through some really tough stuff. So I thought I'd start the show by sharing that story with you and taking away some lessons that I hope will serve you well as you grow your practice too. So my friend went through a really difficult time. It was a real personal crisis. He had some health problems, and at the same time, he went through some very difficult and very challenging family issues as well, all at the same time. The practice didn't stop. Of course, the patient still needed to be seen, bills still needed to be paid, and of course, the business doesn't get compassionate leave like a team member might. It has to keep moving forward. So I want to tell you what actually worked for them and what didn't work for them. What saved them was having those 4 financial systems in place, the ones we spoke about last time. And those systems ran without the business owner touching them. Because they had a financial forecast or a projection in place, because they had allocation of profit automatically set up with their bank accounts, and because the team knew the critical drivers and the KPIs that they needed to hit every single day, every single week, they kept the wheels turning. Now, what really worked well there was the business was able to stay afloat financially, but what sank them, or nearly sank them at least, was the parts they hadn't yet systemized. So there was a whole bunch of ad hoc payments that nobody knew how to process. There was no visibility of who owned which processes, and there was no delegation or financial oversight. So those gaps ultimately widened until they became an emergency and they needed some help. So again, if your practice cannot run financially for a couple of weeks or a month without you personally having to check this or check that and chase payments or pay bills or whatever it is, it's not financially resilient. It's financially dependent on you. It's another version of key person risk, and that is problematic. So in times of emergency, your practice is either going to be a life raft for you or it's going to be a dead weight. And the difference is what you build before the storm, not during it. So it's really important to, yes, have those 4 financial systems in place that we spoke about in the last episode, but also those minor systems, those little checks and balances, the invoicing, the bill paying, all those sorts of things, they need to be documented and they need to be systemized too. So building a financial safety net before you need it is not just about crisis planning. It's about plugging slow leaks in your practice long before they become a crisis. The problem is that those slow leaks don't jump around screaming for attention, so it's easy to overlook them or easy to ignore them. And then all of a sudden, you've got this big drama. And so I want to talk to you about one of the leaks that we see happening all the time, and that is the number of phone calls that come into the practice each week from people asking for how much a crown might be or how much a checkup is or whatever it happens to be. The problem is that oftentimes reception teams find these calls a bit annoying and a bit frustrating, and I get that that can be the case. But the thing to understand is these price shopping calls are clear buying signals, so we need a way of handling that. And the way I'd suggest handling that is to have a conversational framework rather than a script for your reception to use. Now, the difference between a script and a framework is really important. A script is following a word-by-word, verbal ping-pong type of format. They say this, I respond with that, then they come back with whatever they come back with, and I do my verbal jiu-jitsu and do whatever I do from there. The problem with the script is twofold. One is if the patient goes off on a tangent, our script falls apart because we don't know how to respond in the moment very quickly. And secondly, I don't know about you, but it can sometimes feel really weird using someone else's language that isn't the words I'd typically use myself. So a framework, on the other hand, it's a structure that gives you a conversational outcome, but providing flexibility that allows you to get to the same outcome irrespective of your language pattern versus my language pattern, for example. We get to be ourselves within the same structure. So we call that freestyling within a framework. Now, when it comes to price shoppers, there's really a couple of key parts to the framework there. The first thing we need to be able to do is to say, look, thanks again for calling. My name is Jesse and yours is, and I'm inviting their name, because oftentimes people will just ring up and say, how much is a crown? And you go, well, thanks again for calling. My name is Jesse and yours is. And what I'm trying to get is their name. What I might then say is it's really hard to give you an exact answer because the price varies with the complexity of the treatment and the type of material used. However, using our past patients as a guide, I can say the fee for a crown would be somewhere between $1,200 and $1,800 depending on your circumstances. And then what I'm going to say is a very important line. How does that compare to the prices you have already? The reason that line is very important is it acknowledges that they're shopping. It acknowledges that they've been given a quote elsewhere, and we're not trying to hide from that fact. And so if the patient's name is Bob, for example, and they've said $1,500, I'd say, look, Bob, what we do for all of our patients, and what I'd suggest we do for you, is to schedule a consultation with Dr. Green. He'll have a look at the tooth and go over all the treatment options with you, including the pros and cons, and then give you an exact fee rather than the ballpark estimate I've given you. And then what I do is I test for acceptance, and I say, look, how does that sound to you? And hopefully Bob says that sounds great. And you could make that consultation free or paid. It's up to you. And then what you'd do is you'd go through a process of booking an appointment, which we call the cascading series of alternate choices. And the reason that's really important is you've got to understand that these patients are good patients. They're actually great patients. The problem that they've encountered is that someone has given a fee quote to them, and the only unit of comparison that they have is money. And our job is, when they come into that consultation, is to treat them really well, to give them an amazing experience, to let them know that the fee is not the only point of comparison at play here. We want to let them know that they're going to receive great clinical care, a wonderful patient experience, all the things that go beyond price, and communicate value for the money, not just the fee. And I think that's a really key and important distinction. So remember, the call is not just about price. It's all about value. And at the moment, their only point of value is price. And our job is to change that. So one of the things I really want to talk about is economic downturns for a moment. And I've been fortunate, I'm going to say fortunate because it is fortunate, to practice through some significant downturns, because I've learned a lot through those. Through the recession that we had to have in the 1990s, or the aftermath of that, through the Asian financial crisis of the late 90s, through the dot-com boom and bust, through, of course, the global financial crisis of 2008, and, of course, more recently with COVID and beyond. And what I really want to talk to you about is what financial resilience really feels like, because I think it's important to understand that cycles come and go. And at the moment, I'm hearing a lot of commentary in the various Facebook groups about difficult economic times. And while I'm not blind or oblivious to those difficult economic times, I really want to make sure that we focus on what is within our control. What is our locus of control? Because one of the things I'm noticing in the Facebook groups is too many people, in my opinion, are giving too much power to factors outside of their control, to the extent that they're often sounding hopeless, helpless, and fearful about the future. And what I want to impress upon you is that each of you have way more in your control than you might realize. And your financial outcomes are greatly determined by what you do, way more than what's happening in the outside world. And the problem that I see in these Facebook groups is that when one person is starting to express negativity, it gives everyone else an excuse to say, oh, that's okay, they're feeling it too, therefore it's not my fault, and I can externalize all the bad stuff as not being my fault. And the reality is, most people's business is a direct reflection of their own abilities to run it successfully. So if you're doing really well, then I salute you and congratulate you, well done. If you're not doing well, then I'm going to encourage you to look within and to figure out where the deficiencies in your skill sets lie, because running a business is a skills acquisition process. You've got to learn some skills around finances. Yes, you've got to learn some skills around marketing and sales, or case acceptance, whatever language you want to put to it. Leadership, management, all those sorts of things are skills that you can acquire over time. But when it comes to financial resilience, it's about understanding the things that are within your control and actively pursuing those things, making sure you know your lead indicators, making sure you have control over your expenditure, making sure you know where your money is coming in from and going to, being mindful of not overspending, making sure you're building contingency plans and de-risking your business, making sure that you have cash reserves for a variety of different things. All of those things build financial resilience. And I want to encourage you, if you have been feeling a bit helpless and a bit at the effect of the economic circumstances, I want you to shake that off, because all of the things that I've just spoken about are within your control. Whether it's understanding your finances, marketing, all that sort of stuff is within your control. And those things, way more than an oil crisis overseas, are going to impact the financial outcomes of your life. So please don't surrender your capabilities. Don't give up your agency, and don't become helpless and hopeless when you have no need to be. Okay, that's my plea for you. So that's it for today. I hope you have enjoyed the episode. I hope you take something away from it. I can't wait to catch up with you next week. But until then, take good care. We'll see you soon. Bye now. Hey everyone, it's Jesse here. I hope you enjoyed that episode of the podcast. If you're looking for some more tools, some more insights, some more inspiration to help you create a practice that you love, as well as a life that you love, well, head across to savvydentist.com and check out all the goodies that we have there waiting for you right now.